evening and welcome to Close Up. Recently, a group of primary school students went on a trip to New Zealand. The purpose was to visit a New Zealand high-tech youth network studio from which youth learn the basics of technology. Lessons from there will soon become a pilot project here in Fiji that will see our youths have a more hands-on approach to technology. It all started inside the Lami Town Council chambers. Lami Town Council Chief Administrator explained to 4 students the reasons why they have been earmarked for the project. The long-term plan here is for an e-library facility to serve the community. It didn't take long for the high-tech youth network in New Zealand to partner with the council on the project. Excitement builds as parents converge with the students, Lami Town Council official, and the sole representative from Foundation of the Peoples of the South Pacific International FSPI to deliberate on the details of the 4-day tour. The children, Lepani, Marian, Grace and Penny, looking on with anticipation, excited at the prospect of traveling abroad and seeing for themselves what is in store for their hometown Lami.
Looking forward to this trip because it's very important to people from Lami and Fijian people too.
We're going to learn a lot about computers and technologies.
About this project here in Lami and new technologies and all.
How do you think you're going to help the youth in Lami?
I'm going to share some ideas that I've learned from New Zealand to them, and yeah.
Just go to New Zealand, go make some friends. Just come back here, you can just talk to them over internet.
Nandi International Airport at its busiest Thursday morning. Grace having a last Facebook check on her tablet during a very last minute briefing from Tutor, our FSPI representative. After which the crew filed in through the customs door for those important handheld bag checks, through the duty-free area and up on the escalator to the waiting area. There was a delay in the flight and the long wait was well spent, checking out their cameras and taking some souvenir shots for themselves, then the call to board.
Mr. Bullen, welcome to Fiji Airways Friday J413.
Filing in anxiously to the last check-in counter and into the plane, greeted with a warm welcome. A little after midnight, the first lights from Auckland City, the city of sails, appeared.
Ladies and gentlemen, kia ora and welcome to Auckland.
Though everyone was tired from the 4 hours flight, there was no mistaking the excitement and anticipation as the 4 students stepped into the Auckland Airport terminal. The unfamiliar Auckland chill proved a little too cool for the Fijian crew. After a few introductions with their host, it was straight to proximity apartments in Manukau City for their stop for the night. At the apartments, high-tech youth network t-shirts were distributed to the group, after which all walked in for a small briefing for tomorrow's program before stepping into the lift.
I'll meet you outside.
Okay, we'll come down with everything.
At 9:15. You're staying here for the whole time.
The boys didn't waste any more time as they checked into their room, familiarizing themselves in the process. For the girls, a last chat back to Fiji that they had arrived safely will cap the night off. Kia Roa College greeted the Lami crew on that special Friday morning. Situated in Otara, a South Auckland suburb, this is the host college that is home to Studio 274, New Zealand High-Tech Youth Network facility. Once again, a quick brief before the welcoming ceremony that will be done by the students.
Those that will get called in, will walk in, we'll pause for a couple of seconds.
Amongst those who came out to greet them, Mrs. Roden, a Fijian lady who is also a very senior staff at the college. So all felt at home, until a little into the slow walk to the marae, when surprised by the sudden outburst of the traditional Maori chant, signaling the arrival of the Fijian entourage that welcomed the group. The marae, a symbol of reverence and traditional heritage to the indigenous Maori here in New Zealand, and then a traditional haka performed by the students of Aroa College. A prayer and a traditional welcoming speech in the native tongue followed, after which a gift from the Lami crew was presented, including a reply from our FPSI representative to thank the students for the warm welcoming ceremony.
You know, our ancestors, they were warriors as well. So when they hear things like that, you know exactly what to do. We feel these are the things that bind us. So we are thankful, we're really grateful that we know that we are here, we are not strange here. There's some things that are here that connects to us.
The enthusiastic school group did give another inspiring performance after the speech to cap off the formal traditional welcoming protocol. And then the informal welcome with some of the senior students from Aroa College meeting their curious counterparts from Fiji. New Zealand High-Tech Youth Network Studio 274 is an extension arm of Aroa College. Situated within the school compound, its purpose is to engage interested students after school hours in activities related to information technology, hinging on development of computer skills in various aspects that will allow each individual to enhance their skills, using a laid-back personal drift that encourages growth. In the context of the vision behind the project, in a setting like New Zealand relative to that of Fiji, to entrench culture and identity as the drive behind a person's success. Using information technology as the mode of learning, hence the rather informal classroom setup. Talking to Lami Town Council Rep, Head of School Mike Uzma says it's all about understanding and inculcating computing skills from a basic perspective.
There's this whole project called one-to-one learning, which is where every child will have a laptop, and that's fine, but what it does is take away that Pacific way of learning, which is sitting under a tree learning together. You know, the way we're designing the studio in Lami is so that it flows out of the classroom, it's in part of the environment. The learning becomes real then, and it means that uncle or auntie or mum and dad can also sit there as a learner.
The studio had everything a youth can use all his leisure time on, including a challenge wall where members can put up projects they've completed as an inspiration to those who will want to join later on. One of the activity area inside the facility includes a computer freelance drawing station on which Lepani had the first go at, trying out a set of skills dear to him, sketching. Whilst he was at it, Penny was busy engaging a media crew from TVNZ who were eager to know what does New Zealand High-Tech Youth Network have to offer to this Fijian crew, and Penny delivered his interview well.
In terms of our rules, I mean, we're looking at kids between 8 to 25. You know, it's a very broad age range that we have. But in terms of the numbers, you know, our experience is that on day one, you know, depending on how well we market the project, it's, you know, day one for this project that we've had out here in this site here, there was 5 kids that started on day one. Day two, that number doubled. By the end of the week, they had about 30 or 40 kids here. By the end of the month, they had about 90 kids. And so I think the current roll of kids is around about 200 they have in this site here. And so because it's a voluntary program, the kids will come you know, when they want to come. But what we've discovered is a lot of the kids in that number of 200 will probably come maybe twice or 3 times a week. And so they'll stay, you know, for however long. The studios are open 4 hours a day, you know, Monday through to Fridays. But again, that's dependent on the site. So Lami may have a slightly different numbers that they may work with.
The girls, Grace and Marion, started off with a Photoshop project. As simple as it looks, the steps involve taking shots with a still camera outside the studio, then superimposing the uploaded frame on a set background on the computer. And who better to train them with this unique computer skill? Melissa Masters, a Kiwi of Cook Island descent, who has been with the Studio 274 for some time. A tutoring hand the project coordinators look up to when it comes to cradling the learning traits of these young minds.
Photoshop is our kick-off program, so with new members that don't really know what their niche is, what their forte is, what they want to do, we'll do a rough project with them in Photoshop. So we'll just find out what their interests are. Maybe they're interested in a game or a movie, or they're interested in cars or some public figures, some famous people, and then we'll just do a rough Photoshop with them. and just show them what the program is about, show them what it can do, how to manipulate images, and yeah, really find what their style is.
So put that in the...
Drink it.
Yeah. Yeah, cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
For Penny and Lepani, the musical grooves in them found its niche inside the professional setup that makes up the music recording studio. Checking out the advanced recording machines and voice microphones that brings out the best musical tones out of an inspired amateur musician. And in the studio with them, Q Yorani, the best in bringing out musical aspirations of such talented youngsters who intend to make a name for themselves in the lucrative market. Q, a reliable coordinator, has been with New Zealand High-Tech Youth Network since 1997 and has seen youths walking out the doors of the South Auckland studio well-developed individuals compared to when they first walked in.
For me, the most exciting thing is pretty much hearing their awesome ideas and learning from them. I'm not considered the master in the studio. We all learn together, so for me, every day I'm being blown away by ideas that I never think of, so for me, that's the main thing that blows me away with the youth. After a bit of training, once you've learnt about all different technology in here, you can book it and able to use it yourself to make your beats, record your voice, master it, and then also export it out. And then if you want to take it further, you could easily use this place to create a video as well.
Studio 274 is lacking in nothing, complementing its collection of information technology softwares, 3D modeling machines at the basic level. Having a replica to give a mini model of the producer's objective is the vision behind this particular part of the studio. Of course, it all begins from one's ability to sketch and draw on paper, with a master stroke of genius on display here.
We've really looked at how we can bring together what the kids know, what they bring with them from home, from the communities they're in, from the schools that they, and that knowledge and information that they know, we'll hopefully be able to give them some of the resources, provide the resources for them so that they can start to express those, whatever way, whether it's through music, through stories, through film, through a creative artwork, or a poem. But it allows them to really be creative in that way. And so the studios are that environment. We provide some really good what we call studio educators, some people, some adults, some people with some real skills in trying to bring out their potential in our young people.
After the first introductory rounds inside Studio 274, the group was taken on a brief cultural tour within Aroa College, hosted of course by Q Yorangi, one of the coordinators. First, a walk through the staff facilities and the servers that collate all electronic data used by students through its basic IT programs. Down the hall into the school library, today occupied by senior classes involved in one of Aroa's college formal educational curriculum, then to different sections of the school building that caters for different cultural communities. Aroa College curriculum is intertwined with cultural studies, so it remains an integral part of the school's daily program, placing cultural identity as the core of its basic development slant. The same concept on which the High-Tech Youth Network that will be built here in Lami, Fiji, will be based on.
What this approach is trying to do is trying to preserve our culture and traditions through technology.
The Samoans welcome us with a traditional dance incorporating a fusion of the modern with tradition under the watchful eyes of supervisors from the local Samoan community. The Tongans, on the other hand, greeted us with the traditional chant, assisted by members of neighboring Tongan community from the Otara, South Auckland area. According to administrators of the program, the informal and laid-back setting of cultural-based system sets the tone on which Studio 274 operates.
Technology is how we navigate it into the Pacific, how we use the stars, how we plant our gardens. We know when to plant our gardens because of when the moon is right and all that sort of stuff. So that's technology, and that's all driven by culture. I think we've had a couple graduate from university. Not that that's the only success that we measure, that you have to go to university. In fact, most of these kids can start up a job in their own right now. They're so clever. So yeah, we're stuck with these kids, and that's what our hope is with Lami, is that they will stick with those kids for the whole of their primary and high school, and see them go off to FNU and USP and all these sort of places, or even just come into the studio when they've finished high school. And we have this as well available. They can actually start a business using the technology inside the studio. But that probably won't happen for a little while, because our goal is to grow those kids. And then the trick is that we use those kids who are using our studio for a business to teach our other kids who are just coming through. So it's their way of paying back all the investment that was made into their lives. 'Cause you're a beautiful woman.
Back at studio, it's peak hour for its members, after-school programs. The core operation of this informal but rather intensive New Zealand high-tech youth network setup. Budding musicians already strutting their stuff in the music recording room, trying out the professional recording machines and even tutoring each other in the process. Photoshop once again holding the center of attention from members, as highlighted by the coordinators, the Gateway program establishing itself as the window into the youth's untapped talents and interests. This is the target time frame for the program, when students are out of the classroom environment. Hence the flexible curriculum on which the program is founded on, to let the youth explore their own creativity using high technology softwares to bring out their individual gifts.
For us, understanding that richness of knowledge means that technology is talked about inside studio in that context. And so that means that mum and dad and auntie and our village chiefs and in Māori we use the word kaumātua, which is our elders, can then start talking to kids about science and about technology and education and math. That's not just the domain of a Western culture, that we have our own science and we have our own technology and we have our own maths that's useful for the survivability of us as Pacific and Māori people. So that's why we think linking our cultural knowledges to technology is very important inside studios. And that's going to look very different in Lami Bay than it would in a project down in Dunedin.
Well, Lami is a close-knit community where how is it configured is you have formal and informal settlements in Lami, and also you have villages. So there's an interesting composition of different kinds of communities that exist in Lami. So we felt that this could be a good place to pilot a project like this, and also the rich culture and cultural setting that exists in Lami as well, with the two villages that exist in the Lami town boundary, which is Suwabo and Lami village.
And so part of that is the culture of the community, and it's all those different things, whether it's youth culture, but for us it's also ethnic culture, whether we're Māori, Samoan, Fijian, Irish, English. Those cultures are important, and it's for us to say that in this world where there's so many things that these kids could be doing, that actually the moral compass, what sets their grounding, where do they belong? Where do they belong? And so for us, for a project that we have in Otara, out here in Henderson, but also in the project that we see in Lami, in Fiji, is that the moral compass that our youth have is centred on where they are, where they belong.
These students from Lami are here in New Zealand for this very purpose, to take what they can learn from the studio in terms of design and vision and create a similar setup in Lami. Kane and his group are responsible for interior designs to the virtual image that is now being put together for the Lami studio. This includes carpet designs and the appropriate paint coating to go with the building. Melissa's group will complement the raw floor plan of the proposed Lami studio with bits and pieces they believe will serve the true purpose of the setup. For instance, the inclusion of a park, a pool, or even a baseball court that goes in line with the exuberance of youth. This last group of youths, supervised by Q Yorangi, is mapping out the real size of the floor plan on the ground to see how reasonable the size is. This life-size demonstration allows the members to see for themselves how convenient movement into, out of and within the Lami studio will be, as walking into the real studio, except without the walls and a roof. a plan nearing completion, except for a final decision that has yet to be finalized from the Fijian authorities.
The agreement with FSPI has already been signed, but the MOU between High Tech Youth Network and Lami Town Council has not been signed yet, and that's something that we're trying to get out of the way so that we can move the project forward. At the moment, it's sitting at the Attorney General's office for his advice, and before it is signed by the Lami Town Council Special Administrator.
This brings them all to this last brainstorming session. At the end of the day, the plan about the proposed Lami studio is being hatched within the walls of this Studio 274 in Otara, South Auckland. And what comes out of these proceedings will determine what Lami will have within its backyard soon. One by one, the groups presented their findings and recommendations to Kane, the overall coordinator for this important deciding forum. With lessons now learned, these 4 Lami youths are now pioneers of what in time could just become a groundbreaking initiative. We hope you have enjoyed the show. Next week, join Revive FOO as it travels to the old capital with a group of tertiary exchange students. Thank you for watching. Good evening.